have men sworn off women. I had a conversation with a young lady recently. It was an online chat. Got to be quite interesting. She started off saying in her video that men have been coming for her in her chat, saying that nobody wants y'all. Now I'm talking to a black young lady, seems to be 20-ish. And she said other races of women, she feels, raise their daughters to be wives. She said, but when we want that, we get called gold diggers. And I think that's a different conversation she's having there. She went on to say, but they copy us. They want to do everything that we do. Totally a different conversation, but she have it all merged in there together. Now, I can agree with her when she said that other ethnicity women may be copying black women, maybe hairstyles, dance, clothing, whatever. We can very well see in some aesthetics as far as features, women go and get Botox, fillers in their lips, butt injections or implants. I don't know what the women doing. But when it comes to hair and food and clothing, normally when people copy somebody else, they admire you. So I don't see a big issue with that. When people say culture appropriation, why not let somebody appropriate it? It's culture. People share each other's culture all over the place. So I don't see the fight about that. But she also mentioned other races of people raise their daughters to be wives. That's key. And she said, we are called gold diggers. Well, you are called gold diggers, and it should rightfully be so if it's in that dating stage, that men are expected to give up money. That shouldn't be the expectation. But I think here in the Western culture in America, we date wrong. And so we're living and operating like we're married when that shouldn't be the case. And so when the men get frustrated with the women, they're blaming them for you always want, when this is not his wife, she's not his responsibility. So the women have come up with this entitlement attitude that the men should just sponsor. I noticed that some ladies, not all, asking them to pay for their nail appointment, take them to get their hair done, and pay for their lashes, get a whole new outfit. If you're not ready for a date, don't go on it. You're getting to know this person. You might not even like them after the first date. So why ask him to invest? That's not right to treat people that way. And the whole thing about dating is supposed to be a psych evaluation. You're checking to see how this person thinks. He's checking you out and you're checking him out. How do you think? You might not even like this person. You don't want to go too far with them. So here we are. This is the atmosphere and the temperament that society is in. But again, I think men is playing into this. It's not just on women. One lady here has a big platform. She says, sprinkle, 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 sprinkle. Don't deal with dusty men. You better come up with the bag. So now the men are getting tired of the women with that. And they're saying, well, we're going to go, what they doing? The men going to soft like in life, and they're doing drizzle, drizzle. Drizzle, drizzle. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Now, this seems to be just a tit for tat going back and forth, all because everything's out of balance. So it can be put back in balance. But I try to share a Christian perspective here, and I'm not saying that I'm a good dater. I don't date. I had to stop dating because I've never been a good dater. But I have to take responsibility for me. I don't blame somebody else, for me. If I'm not going to do it right, get off the market. Just come on out of there. But that's not the case with everybody. They don't want to do that. They want to date. Because in the Christian perspective, I believe that we should date with our clothes on. Stop going in all of this situationship stuff. That's a big problem there. It's a situation, and after a situation, then after a situation. Everybody's coming up abused and feel misused and rejected. If the older women are teaching the younger women, and the older men are teaching the younger men the standards of God, we can straighten a lot of this out. The Christian perspective is not just for Christian people, because Everybody's using this. Secular society is using it. The Christian values is about respect, decency, honor, loyalty, commitment. That's not just in a relationship. That's how you go on a job, how you operate in your family, go in the community, platonic friendships, how to be self-respecting, decent, integrity, all this kind of stuff. Everybody's talking about that everywhere you go. So, yeah, what the Christian community does, it takes its lead from general society, from the street. But that can be turned around so that general society can take its lead from the Christian community. How about that? Let's start that trend. That's a good trend. But talking with the lady in the chat, someone else chimed in. And we're just having a conversation. I want to have an agreeable conversation, not agreeable, have a discourse. If it's going to stay respectable, I want to chime in if they want to engage me in conversation. And I'm not out here trying to be an expert, but from an older woman trying to just share something to the younger women. So I'm talking to some younger women. So the second person who got in the conversation said, but I think it's the system. It's a systematic thing. But it can't be. You can't throw everything to a system that's unrelated. This is culture, and culture is built. I'm Gen X. And even during my generation, even though we didn't do everything right either, it's a different temperature today than it was then. This dating thing is it's far out of balance. Now, Gen X have a part we're playing in here because this millennials, because I was communicating with some ladies in their 20-ish age bracket. And they're not just out here sharing information amongst peers. They have aunts and cousins, older cousins and grandparents and parents. Where does they getting this stuff from? Gen X, we're playing a role in here. Because in my age group, also the women express to the younger people, don't let these men take advantage of you. Now that's correct. Go out and make a living. Learn how to make a living. But still, on top of making a living, you have women who are well able to take care of themselves, and they still asking the men to come and sponsor their life, pay their bills. Why? So the men have an expectation back, and rightfully so, right? They're asking you to come up with the body. So can we curtail that and not date with our bodies so the men don't have this expectation? Or even if they do have that expectation, you can have a little bit of leverage to push back. I didn't ask you for anything. I don't ask you to pay my bills. I don't ask you for anything. Because to go on a date, then there's an expectation. Money has to be spent to go on a date. You're not going to go up to a restaurant or out to an event and the people who are sponsoring that is going to say, oh, you all are dating? But that's a horse of a different color. Come on in. Now you're going to have to come up with some money. But paying somebody bills, that shouldn't be the case. So I was sharing with the young people because they was asking, but black people are being highlighted and why? That was their question, why? I agree that black women should not be highlighted because this across the board, it doesn't matter about ethnicity. People, period. And even within the Christian community is dating wrong. And then they go and live together and calling each other fiancés, but still that's a shacking situation and you're committing fornication. And it may be that the black women are just more vocal and more ready to express their grievances. So they're all out there with it. Because in the young lady's video, she was saying men is coming for her in the chat and said nobody wants the black women. Well, I disagree now. Come on. Not for the existence of the black woman. God didn't make a mistake when he made the black woman. He didn't make a mistake when he made nobody. So the black woman is needed. She's the fabric of society the way God wants it to be. But what I think the men mean when they say nobody wants it, they don't want the attitude. They don't want the behavior. They don't want the entitlement. Because who would? So that whole mentality needs to be changed up, and it can be changed. There's many women have these platforms and women are communicating this. I'm not saying anything strange. I'm not introducing anything new. I'm just saying it today based on a recent conversation. And I think it needs to continuously be had so that the solution can be taught. There is a solution for this. We need better boundaries. And we need, both men need to talk to men, right? Women talk to women about how to hold up your end, how to be self-respecting, how to engage with each other. And then when you want to get into the marriage part, talk to people who have longevity in marriage. The young lady was saying in her video that she was communicating with some of the people. She said, I had to clock it. Now see, all these trends, it's always going to be a trend. Right now, everybody's clocking it. But that's just another expression of drama. So you're still drama-ridden, and that needs to be gotten rid of. That brings down and help bring down all the attitude. Because the strength of a woman is in a mixed spirit. That's what the Bible says, a quiet and a mixed spirit. It does not mean don't talk. It does not mean don't think. It does not mean don't express yourself. It means to come down with all of that fire. Always got to be in a person's face wagging. I got to get something off my chest, because we're living life like it's a reality show. I think that life is mimicking art. Even though I know all of that on those reality shows, that's probably some of those women's lifestyle too. But that's TV. And real life shouldn't be lived like TV. So when the women are not getting this response from men of sponsoring their life, treating them like queens and princesses, why not just be a decent, respectable woman? Walk in humility. And they're not getting their expectations met, then they're ready to go off on the men. Let the men know how they're not worth their salt. Because you don't see all this value and this worth over here. And I don't even know what that means anyway. I understand your worth should be in your self-respect. But all of this, you got to know your worth. You got to know your value. What is it anyway? What it look like? I think that, again, that's just an exaggerated term because it's a trend. It's another trend that's floating all up and down the street. There's debris flowing over there and debris that blew over there. Trending. It's trending with worth and value. And do anybody have to know what it is? So we're all fluffed up and overly inflated. So that's why the women want the men to recognize all this value, and they need to be forking up some coins to pay for this value. That's not necessary. That's not necessary. We need to just rest our hips, rest our attitude, rest our temperament, and just get grounded. Get grounded. And just treat people like people, respectable people. Men come to the women like a respectable person, and women approach the men like a respectable person. And stop doing all this over-the-line, over-exaggerated, unrealistic, I don't even know what to call it. Because the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. We're right here where people are being laid off. And I hope this job market turns around quickly. Because this is just too many people losing their jobs. And this cannot have anything good attached to it. It can only have a negative impact at some point. So I hope that this turns around. What if the younger people, the millennials, need to go back and live with parents or cousins, older cousins, uncles and aunts? What would be the expectations? Because the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. Will there be an entitlement attitude that they should just rest on their older people to take care of them? Because that runs out. Once we enter adulthood, or once you enter adulthood, young people, then you got to keep striving. You may not have, but you got to keep striving. You got to keep pushing. You cannot have the same outlook as a young adult as you did as an adolescent when you was a minor. That don't work. The mind has to keep shifting. Even God made the mind that way, to keep shifting into maturity, a different level and a different level and a different level. Even though the job market is tight, it's a great time to keep learning a new skill. This internet, I think many of you all, if you hear me talking on different platforms, I keep saying I think we're in a great time with this internet. People are learning how to use this internet to make money. It's beautiful. So you're walking up on opportunities that maybe you feel like you never would have had if you don't try your hands at it. You got to keep trying. And then keep listening to people challenge you. Don't refuse a challenge. Because what if the men did not tell you what the issue was? then that would be unfair. If they just swore you off and they ignored you, then that would be unfair. They're shunning you without an explanation. Let me see if I don't want my battery to down the phone. But at least they're saying it. Maybe you don't want to hear it, but you need to hear it. Take self-assessment and see if this is me, self. That's the only person you can account for. And learn to be a little more kind. You don't have to bend over backwards. Just be more kind. Bring the attitude down. You don't have to jump in a conversation and cut a person off. They're trying to talk because you disagree with what they're saying. Hear them out. That's a start right there. See, I just gave a little tidbit right there. Try it on. And then again, there's other women out here talking. They're sharing information about how to properly date. They're figuring out something different. It just needs to be a broader conversation, and it needs to keep going. Other young women want to hear. They want to know what to do because they're becoming discouraged is what I'm hearing. She said other races of people are teaching their daughters how to be wives. So you say the black community is not doing that? Teaching the young girls how to be wives? They're teaching them how to be a hookup? That's not good. Because she's saying, what's wrong with us? They're calling us gold diggers. So she thinks that this is a right thing. This coming from a young person. It's a right thing. We're supposed to ask these men for money. No, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't do that. Because if a man wants to be generous with you, he's just going to do it. You don't have to ask him. Let's just keep talking. The young women are crying out. That's a cry. That's a cry for help. What those young women are saying. You remember I said the second young lady who got in the conversation, she said, I think it's systematic. You see how they're thinking about this? It's not systematic. This is in the community. This is in houses. Houses ain't no systematic. That's in your own family. Because first, how women get along with each other. Women can be awfully cruel and brutal with each other. Mean-spirited. So it starts right there in just platonic interaction with people. You don't have to get to dating and marriage because the people who don't want to be married don't marry. Marriage is not life goals. That's individual goals who want to be married. My name is Vanessa. Thank you all for coming in and clicking on the channel. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Take care, you all.